I'm not chatting to you about anything. I'm going to listen and see, see what you have to say.
I think there's two things that I'm going to speak about, and the thread of my question will come from that. I think the first thing is that the interesting part here is there's some cadets here that started with me a long, long time ago, who have now progressed to this auditorium as leaders in the industry, which I'm very proud of. I've been involved in training, and myself was trained from 1960. So you can imagine what my age is. I don't want to give it away. The first thing I'd like to touch on is to acknowledge a couple of things that were said by the speakers, and then probably draw a thread through that, because I think that's important. The first thing is that Leon talked about on-shore training and practical training. And so I would like to bring that through the thread of what our question is. The second thing is that I am involved as a chairman of a bursary fund in putting students into Law Hill Maritime Centre, and then into tertiary education, and then to sea. The consequence of that is that I've become very aware of the things and the identity of the problems that face us. And I think the lady talked about accountability. Somebody else talked about carrying out what they do, instead of just saying it, but saying it and doing it. Unfortunately, Yvette and Malik are not here today, which is unfortunate, but Saimi and ourselves are cooperating a lot on trying to facilitate a number of issues which I'm going to raise the question about. And it goes particularly about quality and and preparing somebody to become passionate about trying to see. So, the question, the fact that we are putting so many cadets into the system and that we are preparing them to fail. Everybody looks at me as if I'm mad. That's not true. We've already said the statistical dropout rate of cadets is in the area of 80%. Are we happy with that? And why is that? It's very simple. We're putting too many out there, and we're not making them well prepared. And there's a number of issues that result in that unpreparedness. Firstly, they're not aware of water, never mind the sea. So we start them off that they don't even know about swimming, sailing, or any activity that takes part at sea. I come from an environment of training where the first thing that we did was to get in small boats and learn to sail and swim and do everything that's practical. We are struggling at LMC to provide them with that opportunity, which we have. We've provided them with a sailboat, which is there for training. Our own bursars are now being brought into a program which introduces them to practical training at NSRI. They're going to qualify as an NSRI coxswain before they even get to Teresa and CPUT or to Leon at SSTG. They then become passionate and they know what they're in for. We are putting students and cadets out there into the environment that don't have that understanding. What is the result? Very simple. They get rejected by the shipping companies. The shipping companies are not happy with the quality that we give them. What does that mean? We don't have berths at sea. Why? Because we're not putting the right people out there. With all due respect to the training institutions and all that, everything, and all the good that we are trying to make with this Merchant Shipping Act policy and everything. We need to control the numbers, we need to make the numbers good, and we need to get a reputation for providing quality cadets. So the question is, how do we do it? And the question is very simple. We don't send them to tertiary educations without practical integration. If we do, they fail. Right? And we supervise on-board training. And, if possible, we provide training here in South Africa before they go to sea, like the Agullus, no problem, where they get the practical training before they get to sea. And then we make sure that when we select them, we select the right students. Now that's one of the issues that goes right back to the beginning. We, as an organisation, do our selection in grade 9. By the time they get to grade 12, they have been exposed to seafaring or sailing or NSRI or whatever, and they've made their choice. I don't want this. I want to do something else. We haven't spent that money that we spend and time and effort that we spend with the cadet program. And I due respect to Saimi, they're trying and they're trying to get it better. And we're working with them to try and do that. So my question is, what support is SAMSA and the Department of Transport going to give to streamlining, streaming students into an environment that they then take up and they don't fail? Thank you.
Good morning, almost afternoon. My name is Teresa Williams. I'm currently acting HOD at CPUT for Maritime Studies. Thank you, Captain Birchall, for that. I was one of Captain Birchall's cadets many years ago. So we have currently two types of cadets. We have the one, definitely Captain Birchall is talking about, and then we have the guys already in the system. And what are we going to do with them? The big question. I appreciate, Mr. Ntuli, what you said earlier on with regards to the national shipping fleet. It is really a matter of urgency. It really is. We don't have years to wait anymore. I'll tell you why. Because the impact of not having a national shipping fleet is a disaster. Not only for South Africa, for Southern Africa. It is really a problem. Now, as an active sailor still, in sailing with people in foreign companies sailors who are sailing in their country's national fleet, they are at home. It means their culture is on board. What they eat, how they behave, how they communicate. Those are the benefits of a national shipping fleet. So it means when we have a South African shipping fleet, we can instill those things for our people. Because predominantly, it's black people. It's African, Indian, African colored, African who are going to sea now. In terms of demographics in South Africa. Just getting the numbers right, guys. So, culturally, we are not at home at sea. And it comes back to the question Captain Birchall just asked now, which is what Captain Whitehead raised earlier. Why are 80% of cadets leaving? It's actually it's a study that needs to be made so that we don't assume what I'm saying now is correct. But being an active sailor myself still, being at sea, on foreign ships, it's not my culture. Many times I'm the only South African and 23 people from their own country on board. So yes, it's not just language, it's many other things. So when people are leaving sea, when they are leaving that environment, there are a number of things that has maybe already taken place that brings a person to the end of their road and say, but really, how can I survive here? Because for something to become part of your soul, and it's what Captain White had said earlier on, it should become a way of life. Previously, with previous generations of sailors, it was generational seafaring. I'm the only person in my family who is a sailor. There's nobody before me. So, if you compare that situation with a person whose father and his grandfather and his great-great-grandfather were probably all captains. And then you have this one person who can hardly swim, which was also mentioned now, because of South African education systems. You take this person and you put them out there. Not having a national fleet makes that person feel perpetually like a foreigner. Why should foreigners take an interest in South African training? If we have our own ships, we can look after all our students. So, firstly, I would really like you, Mr. Ntuli, to speak to President Ramaphosa that this situation of not having a shipping fleet, it is impacting on future generations. Seriously.
Where is he? Yes. Mr. Ntuli, firstly, my apologies for the onslaught on social media on all of your posts. But I feel like it's been necessary. All the panelists, thank you very much for your answers on some of the questions raised. One of the things that was not answered is the question of automation. And I think it's something that everyone's been shying away from because no one knows what's going to happen to the seafarer should automation become a reality sooner rather than later. I've been unemployed for a long time, almost 2 years, in the maritime industry at least. And I've had to do courses on courses out of pocket, which in the maritime industry for a seafarer it's unheard of. Generally companies pay for most of your trainings. I went to a sort of career guidance seminar, and one of the things they spoke of is adjacency. Adjacency is basically where you can be absorbed or learn something adjacent to your industry. The problem for us is, as seafarers, we have a national diploma, most of us, many of us, we have COC, we're not recognized by SAPWA. They don't even know about maritime studies when you contact them. Going to study second and third postgraduate diplomas is expensive. I'm doing full-time at the moment project management at CPUT, which is 60,000 Rand for the year. At the same time, I'm studying logistics part-time, which is also 60,000 Rand a year. It's 120,000 Rand. For someone that doesn't have an income from your national diploma and your COC, it's a shame. It's an outright shame. Why is there so much money being spent on training cadets, knowing that they're going to drop out? It's not something new. You was with me in 2007 at CPUT. There's about 7 people out of our class of 60 who are still in the industry today, and it's only been 10 years. It's a shocking statistic. 7 people. Most of those people were on full scholarships from the NPA. Accommodation, food, everything. Entertainment, it was paid for, including tuition. They are nowhere to be found. Not even closely related to the industry. Why are we not focusing on postgraduate studies, bursaries? Because just because we earn semi-okay salaries at sea does not mean we come home without responsibility. Does not mean we don't have families to feed. Does not mean we don't have bonds, cars, etc. We have the exact same responsibilities. Yet, I have not found, besides the TETA bursary to study at MSc in Sweden, there's no bursaries for postgraduate studies for seafarers. It's either that I'm just being overlooked because of demographics, or there just is no bursary for that outright. And it's a shame, because I can't believe that after 10 years of work, study, learning, I can't find a job. And I'm glad, Ms. Lowe, you spoke about accountability. And Ms. Ntuli, I'm glad you spoke about being uncomfortable. The problem is, uncomfortability on behalf of the ship owners is not the only thing we need to talk about. We need to talk about uncomfortability here in this room. We are too comfortable. We cannot have seminars and conferences and shows and we don't focus on the important thing. Yes, I understand there's many cadets who are recently qualified, can't find work. There's a bigger problem. You have experienced and qualified people who can't find work. So how do we, as experienced seafarers, go out? You recently posted on LinkedIn, Mr. Ntuli, that seafarer cadet training at sea is the only way forward. Do you know that if people ask me, any youngster ask me, what did you do? I'm ashamed to tell him that I studied maritime studies. I see some of the cadets wearing uniforms. 10 years ago, you can ask this man, we were the proudest of people to showcase our uniforms. Today, it's in a black bag in the back of my cupboard. I don't want people to know that I studied maritime studies. Ms. Lowe, you spoke about us having a professional qualification. 3 years ago, I thought it was the most amazing thing to have. The unfortunate thing is, if you are a dog and you go through life knowing you're a dog, but everyone calls you a chicken, there's only so far that you can go without starting to believe that you are now a chicken. This is where I am. Because everyone keeps telling you national diploma means something, your COC means something. There's a shortage of seafarers. It's been 2 years, I'm unemployed. It's a problem. And I can't be the only person who's uncomfortable with this. And there's so many people who said they were going to attend this event today, but the industry is so small that they're so scared to say something wrong, of being victimized and highlighted as someone who went against the grain, that they just refuse to come. Me, I have nothing to lose in this industry anymore. I'm at the very bottom, and from here we can only go forward. Mr. Ntuli, I think if there's anyone that can take this industry forward, it's you. And we have such great hopes for you. Ms. Lowe, you are a breath of fresh air at CPUT. You know it was in shambles, no point in hiding behind it. And I'm really hoping that from here, there's dramatic change in terms of what we're doing going forward, not just for untrained, qualified cadets, but qualified seafarers. Captain Birchall, I recently spoke with Yvette as well, and she basically said officer placement is dormant. 10 years ago, there was companies hunting South African seafarers, literally trying to take you out of the company you're in. In 10 years, how could we have gone so wrong that a company won't even look at you? I'm so glad Captain Birchall spoke about sending the wrong cadets to sea. And I'm not doing this to embarrass the cadets. I'm going to give you an example. The Teresa sailed with me at sea, and I had a cadet on board who did not understand anything about the operation of the ship. Yet, looking at his transcripts from university, he was highly intelligent. And the captain couldn't understand why I didn't want him on my watch. I did a small test with the captain. I told this cadet, I'm not doing this to embarrass you, but I'm doing this to prove a point to the captain. Plots me a passage from Cape Town to Johannesburg. He spent 4 hours looking for the chart for Johannesburg. Is that not shocking? And it speaks to Captain Birchall saying that you need to send the right people. If you're not interested in even looking at a map and finding out where's South America, where's North America, what are the major shipping ports, what are you doing on a ship? You know why they're on a ship, Mr. Ntuli? Because everything is paid for. It's a free ride. Yet they know nothing about it, there's no interest, and this is why they end up dropping out, because they can move from bursary to bursary for as long as they want, studying anything they want. So, from my perspective, my question is, are we going to make bursaries and funding available for postgraduate studies so that we can be absorbed into other industries, considering seafaring is seeming like a distant thing to me right now? Thank you.
From IHA, and we have taken a lot of your cadets. We currently have 14 cadets from, I'm not sure which institutions, but as I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm really concerned about, or it's not a question or a critic or comment, but what are we telling these cadets about sea? what are they expecting when they get there? Because we've had concerns from our captains about the cadets, because it goes back to the attitude issue, where a cadet feels that, well, I'm educated and I won't listen to a charge hand who doesn't even have grade 12. And I'm not sure whether the seagoing journey to them is a fluffy cruise ship with fluffy ropes. Because when they get there and they don't get that, they are told by the captain, go help the charge hand to splice the rope. They're like, okay. They get there, it's not actually a normal rope, it's a rope with wires and stuff. And they're like, my hands, you understand those kind of attitudes. And then I'm not sure whether when they are in a classroom, they are sitting in front of the computers, they are pressing buttons, they don't even have to see the winch when they get there, because only the captain is allowed in our winches. So those kind of things, they also frustrate them. So maybe when we need to change their attitudes before we actually, or as the captain was saying, take them to sea before you put them in a classroom. Go back to that thing, because when they get at sea, it's a totally different environment. They get seasick, and we must understand, Captain, commerciality is one of our priorities. So we can, in a line, in a production line, we have 7 people. If one of those people in that line is sick the whole day because he's seasick, then for me, then my production is, and you also have someone getting sick on the fish, you have to throw that away. So those kind of things, when you drill or when you put this attitude about sea, they mustn't see the nice cushioned situation. There's another thing that you also mentioned. Sorry. So they need to be aware of these things, and they need to know that from a fishing company, they need to start from the bottom, spare hand. And if they are interested to grow with it, then they can grow. There is another point in that. Sorry, but this is the institutions. They kind of vanish. They throw these cadets to the companies. They say, yes, we need you to take these 14 people, and then we never hear from them. No. We need communication between the company and the institution so that then the link is not lost somehow. Sometimes we lose these cadets, we don't know who to tell that the guy has just vanished AWOL. And then we have another issue in terms of well-being. As per the SAMSA regulations, we need to do their seagoing medicals and all that stuff. Then it's a challenge because these guys are drug users and stuff. We can't take them. That also needs to be addressed with them, that we cannot go to sea if you have a problem with drugs. You don't even have to try because we can't allow you.
Good afternoon. My name is Claire Gomes. I work for African Marine Solutions, or AMSOL. We employ about 400 South African seafarers on 17 specialist vessels that are active around the South African coast. I've been in the industry for nearly 20 years, and I think today I've experienced more honesty in engagement than I've experienced in 20 years. So I'd like to recognize that. And I'd also like to recognize that I think that many of us in this room are guilty of glamorizing this industry, which is exactly what is at the nub of the issues that have been honestly raised today. We've created poster children. We've created magazine quality promotions to attract anyone who is interested in a job and a happy, prosperous future to our industry. I stood on one of our bunker barges in Richards Bay last Wednesday night talking with a crew of 8 about our company strategy and their role as shareholders in our business, because the employees own 12%. And the reality of working conditions on a bunker barge compared to that beautiful poster we all see and those videos we watch about a career at sea is quite shocking, certainly to someone like me who works in an office. And their conditions are probably 90% better than the majority of seafarers endure in the world. So I firstly wanted to say that I think we all need to reflect on this glamorization and unpack the consequences as you so rightly raised, and as Wesley so rightly raised. We as a corporate know that the answer to employment and unemployment issues lies in our own growth. We're looking into the region to grow our business and create employment opportunities. But every time we bid in for contract work and we include the cost of South African seafarers, we become uncompetitive. So part of this conversation is also about the economic environment that we're in. And you asked the question, Mr. Ntuli, about why are South Africans not sought after anymore? I don't think it's because the skill is not there and the competence is not there, but we need to look at the broader global context and how the South African seafarer has perhaps become slightly uncompetitive over the years. And then we need to look at, in even more broader terms, what are we trying to achieve as a nation? Mass employment at entry level, or are we trying to remain niche specialists in this particular sector? So those are just some of the reflections, but I really appreciated this quality of engagement today, and I'm very curious to know how we can, as you said, be part of the discussions going forward. We have a track record of sustainable employment for our seafarers, but it's no longer about what you have achieved, it's about what we can collectively do together into the future, based on this adult, mature engagement. So that's really my comments as a ship owner.
My name is Wisi. I work for SAMSA Special Projects. Basically, we manage about 6 vessels and 7 the SA Arcalist. Based on what the challenges that we're facing right now, from being engaged with the seafarers directly. First of all, for example, your ratings and your cooks, when it comes to education, that is as far as they can go. If you are an able seaman, you go up to basically to be a bosun. That's all you got. So after that time, what happens to the seafarer in terms of education? So that's the problem that they are facing, is that I can only get my COP as an able seaman. After that, what happens to me? Or a cook, for example. And the other thing, mostly the cadets that they complain about is the passing down of knowledge or skill. You go on board for that 12 months, there's nothing. You're just filling out the task book. After that, you study, you get your class 3. That's it. When I have to employ you as an officer, because we came up with a job skilling program, which because of the kids that come out of, they just recently qualified, they can't find employment. If you go to, let's say, Seafarer or wherever, you go there, look, oh, last time he said was a cadet, so I won't take this person. But we try with the job skilling program that SAMSA has to give these guys at least 3 months so that they can be marketable. But at the end of that 3 months, there's no guarantee they'll be employed by SAMSA special projects again. So what happened? I'm sitting with about 60 names. I've got a list about 60 names. Those kids don't have work. Every day they cry to me, they call me every day. Can you please? To a point some that they even try to bribe. I had to chase one kid who came to me with $1,000. I'm not sure where we're going. I'm really not sure where we're going. It's tough. Thank you.